My name is Anna, I represent Ciklopea, and today we are going to have a short talk, a short chat with our colleague, Nikola Ljubešić. Nikola is a researcher at the Jožef Stefan Institute in Ljubljana. He works in areas of computational linguistics, natural language processing, and more recently, computational social science. We'll talk to him about the use of machine learning, recently mostly deep learning, to achieve two goals: build technologies that automate human activities, processing of language, and the second goal, obtain insights into underlying phenomena about language and society. Oh, it sounds so official, Nikola. So please tell us more from your nice environment about what actually do you do when it comes to machine translation, and actually please let us know about your work.
So I might start with the point where we met again recently. This was the case when I started organizing or co-organizing a shared task on machine translation between similar languages. So I was proposing the shared task of translating between Slovene on one side and Croatian and Serbian on the other side. So machine translation between similar languages is a vastly understudied area, and we are really eager to introduce a shared task on this topic. Shared tasks in general in our area are occasions where researchers come together. A few of the researchers who organize the shared task define the exact task and the exact situation in which a task is supposed to be run. So the task here is to translate as good as possible between these two or three closely related languages. And to be able to do this, we needed some data, some translations between Slovenian, Croatian, and Serbian that were never published before. And for that, we contacted Ciklopea and asked them whether they would be able to give some of this untouched data to us. And very good news was that this was possible. So this is the most crucial part of every shared task, to have an evaluation campaign. So to have an evaluation methodology which is as objective as possible. Because the whole idea of shared task is to people to come together, try to solve the same task in different ways, and then comparing their solutions, the quality of their solutions on one side and the specificities of these solutions on the other. So, and in general, I would like to hail praise to Ciklopea and Bisnode on both sides to donate the data for this shared task, because in general, research nowadays in machine learning and artificial intelligence needs as much data as possible. And it is crucial for public bodies, but also for the industry, to give data for research as well, because having data available will improve research, which in the end will also improve the technological capacity of industries relying on this technology.
Thank you. So you can say that the project was successful in general, right? The product that you were given in the end of the research is being used at the moment?
So the shared task currently underway. We know that we have multiple teams actually working on this task as we are speaking. So we still don't know the results and how well the teams did, but from previous experience, I can tell you every shared task is a huge success, because especially given that this shared task is organized as part of the workshop in machine translation, which used to be the main workshop for machine translation in the world. And nowadays, although it's still called a workshop, is actually the largest conference on machine translation in the world. And best teams in machine translation are working there, and I expect to have really good results at the end of the shared task.
Great, we wish you luck, definitely, and we are happy to be part of it. Just, to explain in general to our listeners who may not be that acquainted with the concept of MT, can you just, give a short definition about it?
So machine translation is a task where machines are trained or made capable of translating from one human language into the other human language. The complexity of this translation naturally depends on how far away these languages are. So translating between Slovene and Croatian is probably much simpler than translating between English and Russian or English and Chinese. And this is exactly the reason why traditionally most of the machine translation was focused on very distant languages, because this was the most hard task for humans as well. But nowadays, given that recently we obtained huge improvements in machine translation, especially with this new area of deep learning, which just enables much larger models with much more hyperparameters, as we call them, to be trained, and which in the end enables much better translation. Now people have started focusing on different subtasks, one of them being translating between very closely related languages, which is from start a simpler task, but we also have higher expectations from this task. On the other hand, we also investigate areas like domain-specific machine translation, so being able to translate very well in a specific domain, because we all know Google Translate, which is very good in translating the general domain, but many times, especially you, the language service providers, need very good translations in very specific areas. And for that, we need slightly different approaches.
Great. And when it comes to the term under-resourced languages, can you explain a bit more to our listeners what that is?
So I was talking previously on the tasks of translating between English and Russian on one side, and for instance, Slovene and Croatian on the other side. So here, speaking about language pairs, we might consider English and Russian probably to be a very well-resourced language. Why? Because most of our work in machine translation actually uses existing translations to build these models that are able to translate new texts afterwards. And there are many translations available for large languages, while for smaller languages, Croatian, Slovenian, Serbian, etc., being included, we have much less data. And for that, it is very crucial to gather resources, to gather translations, but not only translation, but also running text in general. So as much text as possible in these languages, so that we can perform these tasks as well as possible.
Great, great. Good to hear that you're working on that, definitely. And what about other projects that you are currently working on? What's happening?
So in general, my work resides in two areas. One is general infrastructure for natural language processing. So I actually started working first in Croatia on Croatian language, because I'm Croatian. But throughout the years, I started collaborating a lot with Slovene colleagues, with Serbian colleagues, etc. And we started applying these methods for automatic language processing on similar languages, as similar methods tend to work on similar languages. Nowadays, I actually work in Ljubljana, as you know, and our scope currently is in the realm of South Slavic languages in general. So we know that there are so many researchers working on Mandarin, on English, etc., and there is no need for another guy working on these languages. But for Croatian, Slovenian, Serbian, the situation is kind of good. But for instance, speaking about Macedonian is a highly under-resourced language. And we started working on this whole group of languages and reusing the methodology in gathering data, in annotating data, training technologies, etc. So this is one line of research. The other line of research is more in the direction of computational social science that we have mentioned before.
Yes.
So we make use of social media data to investigate various social phenomena. Currently, we are mostly focusing on hate speech, on being able to automatically identify hate speech on social media on one side, but which is even more important, I would say, to understand when and why hate speech occurs and how to counter hate speech online.
Great, great, and great initiative. And also when it comes to Twitter, you also have some experience with it.
Yes, Twitter is actually our most favorite social medium, just because it is very much aware that nowadays social media are not just there to inform people or to make people spend some quality time there, but also as a vast amount of data to be able to perform research on what is happening in the society, especially this new information-based society. And Twitter there is, I can simply say, much better than some other large social media regarding their availability for researchers, also their terms of service being tailored for research, not only for selling data, and similar things that are happening actively on other social media.
Great. And one other thing which really interests me, you can predict emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah. So in general, when we work on social media, it is not just enough to know what was being written there, but very important is also to know who has written something. So on one side, we want to know as much as possible about the users of social media. For that, we have different methods of identifying people's gender, age, also their emotional profile. On one side. On the other side, especially when working with hate speech data, we are also interested in understanding what kind of emotions people were probably affected by while generating some content. And there are methods of identifying emotion in text and also in spoken language by now that we are actively using and working on.
Great, thank you very much. When it comes to the role of LSPs, language service providers, you are definitely intertwined with the way they work and the traditional approach compared to the future one. What would you suggest to LSPs to be aware of when it comes to MT, when it comes to a service that they might be offering in the future? Is there something, what can trigger their attention even now?
So on one side, I must applaud LSPs in general for being one of the first industries who became aware of automation and the new wave of artificial intelligence changing our lives. So LSPs in general started using machine translation almost 10 years ago now. Ciklopea is also one of the good examples. I remember I just had to look up the email today just to remember what year this was. But in 2014, I worked together with Ciklopea on applying statistical machine translation. Then we used more simple methods of machine translation than we are using right now with neural networks, etc. And applying this model in a full-fledged translation project. For the future, so I think LSPs are already on a very good track. They're aware that automation is there and that automation will improve throughout the years. And the only smart thing to do here is to use these technologies. Of course, technologies have always two sides, good and bad sides. But from the standpoint of LSPs, the tasks that will be given people will just be more simple. People will be more some sort of a coordination for the technologists, and the technologists will be doing most of the work. But technologists will never be able to work by themselves. There will always have to be a human in the loop to supervise what the technologists are doing and to make sure that the output of the LSP process is as much of high quality as possible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. We definitely agree. And that is what we also suggest and what we also like to emphasize when we talk to our audience or we are with other shareholders of our industry. Definitely human touch will always be present. Technology is here to help us, right? Yeah. Yes. Okay, great. Also, I would like to ask you now, just one question about the groups that you maybe follow on your LinkedIn profile. Do you have any suggestion for our audience what to follow on LinkedIn when it comes to neural machine translation or etc.?
To be honest, for researchers now, Twitter is the place to be. So I follow most of the developments in research, which are on a weekly basis. So every week there are some new great papers improving on the previous state of the art, etc. So for researchers, at least, I would suggest going to Twitter and following there what is going on, just because this is the place where most of the novel research is being mentioned.
The place to be in 2020.
Yeah.
Social media, right. Great. Thank you very much, Nikola. If there is nothing else that you would like to add now, we'll definitely talk to you again in the future, I hope.
Yeah.
And we wish you luck with your current work, and we wish you a great holiday. If you're on holiday now, maybe you are, maybe you're not. Who knows? But definitely,
that I am.
don't work, please. Have some rest.
Okay, I will. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. We'll keep in touch. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.